Now, could the future of electricity generation be coming to Ararat soon? The company Pacific Heat and Power has opened up expressions of interest as it seeks farmers from around the regional city to supply it with straw to turn into energy. It's not the first time farming waste has been turned into energy. In 2019, Beaufort and Skipton Health Services worked with Pyrenees Shire Council to build a biomass boiler at a Skipton campus to generate heat and hot water. But those close to the project say it could still be groundbreaking. The Grampians Gas Project, estimated to cost $200 million if it goes ahead, is a proposal the company has been discussing with Ararat Council for a year now, though it still is in its early stages. Reporter Alexander Darling spoke with PHP's Managing Director Dr Scott Grierson to learn how this biofuels plant would work and its potential economic impact.
Grampians Gas Project was conceived probably just over 12 months ago based on dialogue, firstly, that was initiated through the Ararat Rural City Council, and then that tied in a number of interested farmers in the district who wanted to bring scalable cereal straw energy technology to Australia for the first time. The precise kind of final engineered design and configuration of the project is something that's still in front of us to sort out, but fundamentally the value proposition is around trying to find ways to creatively add value to agricultural residues and turn them into energy and other value-added products that can actually stimulate the regional economy, create more jobs, improve soil productivity, and generally kind of contribute to the overall push for renewable energy in different forms.
And why has PHP chosen Ararat as the place to put this plant?
So it was, well, as I mentioned before, it was partly due to the interest that was expressed and an approach made by regional council or local council, but equally PHP recognises that cereal straw is a major sort of agricultural staple, I guess, and focus of farming and agricultural production in the region. So for us, the Wimmera region is a natural home for a project such as this. Australia, as you probably know, is a significant cereal cropping nation. We produce quite a large volume, both for domestic but particularly for export markets. And really, for me, it's a bit of a no-brainer. I think there's a lot of other reasons also to want to be located there that also relate to issues associated with power quality in Western Victoria as well. And we see good opportunities for a synchronous supply of electricity in Western Victoria to kind of improve network reliability and stability in Western Victoria as well. So there's a number of factors involved, but yeah, overall, I think it's a logical place for us because of that centre of expertise in cereal cropping.
How many jobs will it create? What sort of revenue will it create for farmers and for the local economy?
Well, it's certainly challenging, I suppose, to put firm numbers on that at this early stage of kind of pre-feasibility investigations, but certainly the technology itself is well known. So to give you some sort of guidance, we see this as being a capex probably somewhere in the order of sort of $215 million Australian. And in terms of permanent jobs, unlike kind of wind and solar projects, I guess, the virtue of bioenergy and agricultural waste projects such as this, which are well demonstrated in many other jurisdictions around the world, is that it creates permanent jobs in the ongoing operation, not just in the actual energy plant itself. And we're sort of looking at somewhere, again, without having the final engineered design, it's a bit hard to say exactly, but somewhere in the order of 30 to 40 full-time jobs in operation of the plant itself. But of course, there's a much broader supply chain or value chain that contributes to that. So there will be the fodder guys that are actually baling and handling the straw. There's transporting that straw. There's storage as well. And then downstream of the energy plant itself, which of course can generate both renewable gas, electricity, heat, and biochar, there's significant kind of value-adding opportunities for co-located industries, which also create further jobs. So it's difficult to say what the final number would be, but we would realistically expect that the energy plant and its associated activities would be creating somewhere in the order of 70 to 80 permanent jobs on an ongoing basis. And then, of course, the other industries that would attract and make highly competitive from an energy standpoint would also be employers in their own right. But it's difficult to say how sort of employee intensive those will be until they've been locked away.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the process by which this plant will operate, Dr. Grierson. So the agricultural waste, the cereal straw that's produced on their farms, that'll be baled up and sent to this biofuels plant. How then is it turned into energy exactly?
Well, so there's a number of different technical routes, and these may not necessarily be mutually exclusive, of course. So most people would be aware and understand the concept of combustion. So there's certainly a combustion type technology platform which would actually essentially burn with oxygen that cereal straw to generate steam that would then drive a turbine, and then there'll be waste heat that would be actually available on the back end of that. That's certainly one technical option. And another way is what we call gasification. And gasification, unlike combustion, does not actually burn the material. It just uses temperature to sort of break it apart into its constituent molecules and elements. So what you essentially end up with is a form of gas, a gas stream, which is can be reformed and cleaned up into what we call either renewable methane or synthetic natural gas, which for all intents and purposes is a molecularly identical to natural gas, but it just comes from a renewable resource in the front end of the process. So that's another pathway that will be rigorously investigated. And then finally, the other option is what we call pyrolysis. And pyrolysis is a lower temperature process that, similar to gasification, doesn't introduce oxygen and doesn't burn the material. It just thermally decomposes it and essentially gets rid of what we call all the volatile content from the material and leaves a very carbon-rich, what we call biochar byproduct left over. So there will be energy and a small amount of syngas that is released during that thermal decomposition process that we can then capture and use to kind of drive the process and support the process. But ultimately the target product there is the biochar component at the other end, and that has a really important role to play moving forward in achieving carbon drawdown from the atmosphere. So we return that biochar back to the soil and would redistribute that to the agricultural community. So there's a number of different pathways, and there's a lot of economic modelling that needs to take place at the next phase of investigations. But certainly all of this technology is well proven, well demonstrated in many other parts of the world. So it's a kind of a case of mixing and matching to get the best result, really.
How many, I suppose, kilovolts of energy a year might this completed project produce? I mean, obviously, pending where exactly you're located around Ararat.
Again, it's difficult to say depending on how much emphasis we put on, for instance, biochar production versus electricity or heat and steam production. So it's very, very difficult to say. And again, until we quantify what the final volume of available material is that is actually contractable, we've got a very good fix on how much straw based on agricultural productivity and other data that's available in the public domain. We know how much is out there, but it's a different thing to actually be able to contract that from a commercial perspective. In principle, we're targeting 300,000 tonnes a year. In pure electrical terms, if you were just doing a combustion plant for use of that, which is not our intention, but if that's what you were doing, you're talking somewhere in the equivalent of about a net 45 megawatts of electricity output on an annual basis.
Great. Well, thanks again for your time, Dr. Grierson. Are there any other things about the project that you'd like residents of Western Victoria to know at this stage?
Yeah, look, I think the only thing I would say is this is a real call to action and an invitation to all stakeholders and participants in the agricultural community to really step up and be active in actually contributing their resources to the project. We see this as not only adding jobs, but improving the reliability and stability of annual kind of revenues for a lot of the farmers that are out there that often even in, as I say, in years like we're currently experiencing where there's a huge glut of material, this can give them that sort of certainty of income on an ongoing basis. For a lot of farmers, it also will avoid the need to burn off in the paddock, and of course that's becoming increasingly problematic both from a greenhouse gas emissions perspective, but also simply the cost and bushfire risk and fire risk associated with having to manage those burns. So really we think there's a lot of added value for farmers out there. So we would strongly encourage people to submit an expression of interest through grampiansgas.com.au to give us an idea of what volumes of straw that people are willing to contribute to the project. And then we can start this process, in the knowledge that we have a secure amount of feedstock available.
That's PHP's Managing Director, Dr. Scott Grierson there, explaining how the biofuels plant would work to reporter Alexander Darling.